Hey, co-op. How are you? Happy Monday. Happy whatever day you're joining me. This is Galactic Activations. I'm Angela Kay, and today we're talking about ideas about our body that society has, and I'm offering activations that you get to choose to sort of shift how you view your body and how people around you view their bodies. So today we're going to talk about and define some words like ideology, hegemonic, programming, all sorts of things. We started a conversation a couple of weeks ago about the body where I talked about ethnicity and race, cultural appropriation, all those things, right? And then last week I came in and I talked to you about what activations are, and I offered some more activations for you. I talked about how you as an individual get to choose and how it includes being a clear channel. So today I'm here to talk to you more about this, about activations for your body. Kyla Clapper's been doing a lot of this work this month also in this community, so shout out to her. And if you haven't seen those, make sure you check out her unit also. So galactic activations. And I'm checking really quick just to make sure that I am in the co-op. If anybody is watching me, feel free to let me know if I'm in the co-op so I know that I'm in the right place. I am. Perfect. Okay. The body. So today happens to be MLK Day. If you're watching this on Monday the 18th when I'm delivering this information to you, it is MLK Day. MLK said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about the things that matter. So this is why I do these activations, to offer you the chance to not be silent, to co-create intentionally with programming, to choose your programming. And because if I knew these things, if I had channeled this information and I was being silent, my life would essentially also be coming to an end. What's the reason to be here if we're not talking about the things that matter? And this matters, my friends. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about today, hola Diana. The first thing I want to talk to you about today is social programming. It's something that I mentioned last week, right? I mentioned to you about social programming last week. I talked to you a little bit about how programming works and socialization. We're going to go a little deeper into that today because we're going to talk about some social programming that runs through us and through society about the body. And then we're going to have some activation time to sort of decide if we want to keep running that programming. So think of yourself a little like a computer. We're energy, computers are energy, and socialization or social programming is kind of like putting a computer on your program, and we can uninstall programs. You, my friend, can uninstall programs from your body if you choose to. So social programming is socialization. It is conditioning. And it doesn't mean that all socialization and all conditioning is bad, but it does mean that we have to, or I recommend that we sort of be self-reflective and ask, what have I been taught by society about X, Y, or Z? Today, it happens to be the body. And do I accept that as my truth? Is it possible that there's a different truth out there, right? So as a spiritual leader, a coach, and an influencer, I have some experience with deprogramming and helping people step into and claim the program that they want to run. And also, as a sociologist, anthropologist, and psychologist with my academic training, I have a good understanding on how this social programming or socialization works. So when I look at you, when I look at my clients, when I look at people in general in society, I think of them as individuals. I think of them as groups. I think of cultures, right? Really large groups. I think of societies. And I also think about the programming that's running through. So there's different levels to individuals, and there's different levels as to the kind of programming that runs through them. So I understand how society shapes us. And I also understand why sometimes society shapes us. So today I really want to take some time, excuse me while I move the cat. Today I want to take some time to talk to you first about why these things might exist, because the activation that's coming today is for you to understand, and we'll talk about it in a minute, about how some of the programming, the socialization around our bodies has been put there for a purpose. So I like to talk about hegemonic ideologies, and I know that is a chunk of a word, and so we'll break it down. Hegemonic means dominant. So you can think, when I say hegemonic something, it means the dominant thing in our society. So if you are watching this from somewhere where you are not a part of Western, American, European society, then this might not be true for your culture, but most of you who watch my videos are from a Western, European culture. So hegemonic means the major ideas that our society has, the dominant ideas. So it doesn't mean that there's not other ideas running. There are, and we're going to talk about them today. But it means that there's a system of power behind it, that our power structure, that the structure of our society has a reason to influence us, to socialize us, to integrate these beliefs and these truths, right? Programs into the fabric of our society. So into families, into church, into schools, into public health, into all of these different areas. So hegemonic. And ideology, you can think of as a system. It's a system of beliefs and thoughts and structure that support that dominant theory that's running. Okay, so we have hegemonic ideologies. So the body. We have a lot of ideologies, thoughts, and beliefs that run pervasively throughout our society about bodies. And a lot of them have been planted there on purpose to support a power structure. Meaning that if we were all willy-nilly owning all of the power in ourselves, we might not depend on certain things in our society like we do now. We might not depend on the medical community as much as we do now, or we might define it differently. The medical community is a beautiful gift to us, and also our society benefits monetarily, etc., from keeping a certain programming running through humanity. So what I mean by that is that different belief structures have a power structure and an intention behind them for people to be learning. So let's talk about the rise of diet culture. Diet culture is a multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar, depending on how we define it and what we include, industry, which means that there's a lot of people making a lot of money that benefit if we continue to hold on to beliefs about the fact that we're supposed to look a certain size, or we're supposed to do certain things, or we're supposed to achieve a certain aesthetic. There's a lot of people who benefit from that truth being continually taught on multiple levels in our society. So what if it wasn't true? What if you found out that a lot of the science that the diet industry is based off of broken research? It wasn't until I was in graduate school and I met a professor from Michigan State University named Professor Robinson, who started to talk about these things, and I started to actually look into it myself. And a lot of the research on a lot of the things that basic sort of understanding of diet culture is based off of has been debunked. So as someone who's trained, right, in research methods herself, it's easy for me to read research and be like, oh, that might be a flaw in their method. Or, oh, has that been replicated? So when we talk about research, it's really important in science that things be replicated. It's important that if I do research, Deanna or Shelly or someone else with the qualifications and understanding of what the research is on can come in and redo the study exactly like I did it and come up with the same results. Because if they can't come up with the same results, then that means there might have been a flaw in my study. And it's important that we have multiple people doing this to really test the conclusions that research is making. So a lot of research that's done is also backed by special interest groups, right? And I don't mean that with the connotation that we've attached to special interest group in our society. I just mean that someone has an interest in getting a specific result in research. Sometimes scientists have an interest in getting specific results in their research. Scientists are amazing individuals, and it's so important that we have them in society. And it's also important that we hold each other accountable, that we test research, that we try to duplicate it and replicate it to make sure that if we're going to create policies or create ideology in our society that it's based on things that stand to be true. So for instance, the fact that fat people, people who are beasts, people who have a bigger body are unhealthy, in and of itself, the first research that was done on that has been debunked. In fact, it's not a causal relationship. It's not that having more fat in my body causes these unhealthy things. There's what we call interaction going on, meaning that there's other things happening. So I want to give you an example that's not related to the body to help you understand how this false idea of cause and effect can be pervasive and can make us draw different conclusions. So if I told you that the more firefighters that show up to fight a fire, the more damage there is, that wouldn't make sense to us, because typically we think that, well, if the firefighters are showing up, there's probably going to be less damage because they're fighting the fire. Am I right? If we think that that is cause and effect, if we say the more firefighters that show up, the more damage there is, we are suggesting that there's cause and effect, that the more firefighters showing up is causing the more damage. But in fact, there's this other variable, this other thing that's at play, which is more firefighters show up to fires that are more extreme because they're needed. And because the fire is more extreme, that's what's causing the damage. It's not the firefighters, it's the fact that it is a worse fire. So the same thing is true when we bring it back to our bodies. It's not being a certain size or not being a certain size is causing damage. There's other factors at play. You can be skinny, you can be short, you can be tall, you can be curvy, you can be all sorts of things and have health trouble. But in our society, there were certain industries, etc., that benefited, diet industry, from telling us that being fat can cause all of these health problems, to a point where now doctors say to their patients, oh, you're in pain? It's because you need to lose weight. Oh, you're not getting enough sleep? It's because you need to lose weight. So I challenge you and I offer you this activation to start to question the things that society is teaching us about our bodies, about fat, about calories, about dairy, about non-dairy, about soy, about all the things. Start to ask yourself, okay, so this is a popular belief that lots of people are talking about. Why? Who's it supporting? It doesn't mean that there's not potentially an element of truth behind it. Maybe there is. Maybe there's not. But in our society, the way that our current power structure is, meaning the government, the lobbyists, everything else, we have to question the information that's passed down to us, including if you go back and start to research and look at things like the food pyramid. How many of you were taught about the food pyramid in school? From the time we're really little, we're socialized about the food pyramid and what foods are good and what foods are bad and how much of each food we should eat. And the food pyramid sometimes shifts because we have industries like dairy and farmers and people farming corn, etc., and people who are raising cattle, who are lobbying our government, who controls the body, right, that tells us what's healthy for our body. And so the food pyramid shifts. If you go back and look, dairy wasn't always where it is. Meat wasn't always where it is. That's not saying dairy and meat are bad, but it is saying that the information that's being given to us is being given to us for a reason, including the fact that the idea that people should be thin or look certain ways support certain industry. I want to take it one step further. Are you ready? Let's go. What if we didn't have to do all of the things that society likes to teach us to do to shift our body to being the best body for us? So what if we didn't all have exactly the same bodies and we could all individually have a different body structure that was optimal for us and our soul and our body? Sound interesting? Make sure that you're watching Kyla's videos because she's teaching more about that, right? The fact that different people, based on their souls and where they came from and all of the things, have a different unique code where their body's in optimal wellness. But at the same time, if I'm in optimal wellness in my body, it means that I'm not distracted It means that I can pay attention to things. It means that I can do certain things. If I'm in optimal wellness and I'm not distracted by trying to be skinny and watching the media and exercising and eating the right things and all the things, and I understand how to be, I turn inward, I understand how to be with my own body in my optimal wellness, then I'm not distracted by all these other programs running, which means I can see other things that are going on, which means that the power structures at hand have buy-in to the fact that we are distracted as a humanity around things like diet culture and being skinny and beating ourselves up and not feeling perfect enough in all of the things. Because if you and I didn't buy into that program, we could pay a lot more attention to other things that do matter. I started this out talking about Dr. Martin Luther King. I started out talking about the fact that when we are silent about the things that matter, it's when our lives end. Power structures in our society benefit from the fact that we're distracted by all the that doesn't matter, because then we're so distracted we don't have time or energy or the wellness to pay attention to the things that do matter, to speak on them, to take actions on them, etc. This has been a body activation channeled from Galactica. You get to choose. I talked about last week that you get to choose what feels right to you, that you get to choose your programming. So you get to choose today. Maybe there's a sliver of it that landed. Maybe you want to go explore it yourself. I encourage you to do so. With that, I'm popping off of here. Hugs and kisses, everyone. Stay wild, Moonchild.